Hello, I'm Tom Wilkinson, and welcome to the Thinking in English podcast, a podcast aimed at intermediate to advanced level English learners. On today's episode, let's talk about money. Whether you love the idea of money or hate it, money is undoubtedly one of the most important parts of our modern world. As an important part of our culture, money has obviously impacted our language. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of different ways to refer to or talk about money. Although I can't introduce you to all of these, this episode will give you a few interesting alternatives to add to your vocabulary. I'll also suggest a few money-related idioms that you could try to use. But first, why not follow the Thinking in English Instagram, Thinking in English podcast, or the link is in the description. Full of great vocabulary content, pronunciation content, and grammar content. And you definitely should look at our blog, thinkinginenglish.blog, for all transcripts and bonus content. Here is today's vocabulary list. As always, the written list is available in the description of the podcast and also on our blog, thinkinginenglish.blog. Good. Good. A good is something for sale, or the things that you own. For example, there is a 25% discount on all electrical goods until the end of the week. To barter. To barter. To exchange goods for other things rather than for money. For example, he bartered his stamp collection for her comics. To negotiate. To negotiate. To have formal discussions with someone in order to reach an agreement with them. I'm negotiating for a new contract. Currency. Currency. Currency is the money that is used in a particular country at a particular time. For example, 19 European countries use the euro as their currency. Slang. Slang. Slang is very informal language that is usually spoken rather than written. Chicken is slang for someone who isn't brave. Colloquial. Colloquial. When talking about words and expressions, colloquial means informal and more suitable for use in speech than in writing. English is full of colloquial terms and phrases. Simultaneously. Simultaneously. In a way that is simultaneous. So, in a way that is happening or being done at exactly the same time. For example, 2 children answered the teacher's question simultaneously. Budget. Budget. The budget is the amount of money you have available to spend. For example, the school budget is going to be cut again. Mainstream. Mainstream. Considered normal, or having or using ideas, beliefs, etc. that are accepted by most people. This is the director's first mainstream Hollywood film. Money, whether you love it or hate it. It is almost impossible to live without money in the modern world. Unless you are completely self-sufficient, you need money to buy both essential goods, like food and clothing, as well as luxuries. This has not always been the case. Before the invention of money, people would barter to get the products they needed. For instance, you would swap or trade something you owned or made for something you wanted or needed. If you had cows but wanted some fruit, you would have to first find someone who had fruit, then find out if they were interested in trading with you before negotiating a deal. This is obviously inefficient. What if the person who sells fruit doesn't want cows? What if the only person who wants a cow is offering something that you don't actually want? How much fruit is one cow worth? This system is incredibly confusing and time-consuming. The invention of money made buying and selling things far easier. As money is such a crucial part of our societies, it is natural for unique language surrounding money to have developed. In fact, different parts of the English-speaking world have different words for money and different idioms for using and earning money. As an English learner, you need to know how to talk about money. The most basic part of this is numbers, and I'm sure you already know these. Next are the different currencies and types of money in different countries. The UK, for example, uses pounds and pennies. There are 100 pennies in a single pound. Other English-speaking countries, including the USA, Australia, and Canada, use types of dollars, while Ireland, another English-speaking country, uses the euro. In each country, there will be different ways of talking about money. In the UK, we shorten the word penny to the single letter P. So, in my local bakery, a sausage roll, which is a traditional British pastry, costs 60p, or 60 pennies. If something costs more than a pound, we will often drop the letter P. So, a bottle of Coca-Cola in the supermarket is normally £1.50, £1.50. However, money is not always this simple. In daily life, we often use slang or colloquial terms to describe different amounts of money. So let me introduce you to a few common terms. Cash. Cash is one of the most common alternatives to the word money in the English language. Cash specifically refers to physical money, think notes or bills and coins, rather than electronic money, which makes it a particularly useful piece of vocabulary. In fact, businesses will often have signs that say cash only if they only accept coins or money. And some businesses even offer discounts for customers who pay in cash. If you're buying something in a store, you'll probably be asked whether you want to use cash or card to pay. Grand and K. Next, we have two common ways of saying 1,000, especially when talking about money. Both grand and K mean $1,000 or £1,000 or 1,000 of any currency. So £5,000 becomes 5 grand or 5k. Be careful, we don't say 5 grand pounds, just 5 grand, no matter what the currency is. This way of speaking is especially useful when talking about big numbers. 50,000 is 50k, 200,000 is 200k. When people talk about salaries, houses, or cars, this way of speaking is often used. K stands for kilo, which is the prefix meaning thousand, such as in kilogram or kilometer. There are actually other more informal words that mean the same thing. One that comes to mind is large, as in 50 large, meaning 50,000. But I wouldn't personally use this. Fiver and tenner. The last two terms were used to talk about large amounts of money. The next two are for much more manageable amounts. Fiver refers to a £5 or dollar note or bill, while tenner similarly refers to the $10 or pound bill. Importantly, we don't use it for any higher amounts than this. Your friend might ask to borrow a fiver, or someone might ask you to swap a £20 note for 2 tenors. Quid and bucks. Quid is a very common word for pound used in the UK. The origins for the term are unknown, but it's actually been used for hundreds of years. A quid means £1. 10 quid means £10. 50 quid means £50, and so on. This is only used in the UK. If you want a similar word to use in the USA, try bucks. Bucks is probably the most common slang term used for dollar. I've introduced you to a few alternative terms for money, but there are so many more. Dough, bread, cheddar, racks, wonga can all be used to refer to money. In fact, I'll leave a link in the transcript to an article which gives 100 slang words for money. But how about some idioms? Idioms are used extensively when we talk about money, especially for making, using, earning, and losing money. So let's start with some idioms to use when you are earning money. Make a living. For a living. To make a living means to earn money or a salary. We often use it to describe a steady job that earns enough money to fund your life. Common questions using this idiom include, how do you make a living? Even more common is the similar idiom, for a living, such as in the question, what do you do for a living? This essentially means, what is your job? At the moment, teaching is my main job, so I teach for a living. Filthy rich and loaded. These two idioms are used to talk about people with lots of money. Although filthy is normally a negative term, being filthy rich means you have a lot of money. You are wealthy and affluent. Loaded is similar. If you are loaded, you are rich. Rags to riches. What do you think rags to riches means? Have you heard it before? If someone goes from rags to riches, they have gone from a life of poverty to extreme wealth. They started with nothing and made a successful career out of their life. For example, the founder of billion-dollar company Forever 21, Do Won Chang, worked simultaneously as a gas station clerk, a janitor, and a coffee shop employee before founding his company. George Soros, a billionaire investor, fled the Nazis as a child. Both of these are rags to riches stories. George Bernard Shaw's famous play Pygmalion and the movie based on the play, renamed My Fair Lady, are also excellent examples. How about some idioms for when you don't have any money? Broke. Have you ever been broke? Earlier in 2020, I was certainly broke after the pandemic forced me to return to the UK. The adjective broke is used to describe someone with almost no money. I'm broke is one of the most common excuses to avoid doing something. For example, I can't go to that restaurant, I'm broke. Be careful. You cannot use broken, break, or any other variations to describe poorness. You can only use broke. To be short on money. If you're short on money, it means you don't have a lot of money, or you are on a tight budget. This is especially used after someone makes a large purchase or just before someone is paid their monthly salary. You can also say that you are short on cash. Getting by. Although getting by means you are making enough money to be independent and live in this world, it is normally negative. You're earning enough to survive, but not enough to make positive changes or differences in your life. You can add the words just, so just getting by, or barely, barely getting by, to strengthen the meaning of this idiom. At the moment, I describe myself as getting by, and I think many others would say the same due to the pandemic. So here is today's final thought. Money is such an integral and influential part of all modern societies that, of course, language reflects this. We have idioms to describe the nuances and slight variations in our financial situations, and slang terms to describe different amounts of money or different types of money. Why do you think we have so many new terms? In the last few years, I've noticed a lot of new vocabulary becoming mainstream in the USA, and this has spread to other parts of the English-speaking world. The changing face of popular culture, and especially the rise of music with money as a central theme, has made these new terms increasingly popular. Just think about any of the popular rappers or number one charting songs at the moment. Money tends to be some of the most important themes in their songs. Who's got the most money? What are they spending their money on? And a lot of the words they use to describe their money have become mainstream. Sometimes idioms and terms for money are also connected. Bread is used as a term for money in some places, and this probably comes from the idiom bring home the bread or breadwinner, which refer to earning money or being the main money earner, respectively. I would like to give you a word of caution, however. Be careful when and with whom you use these terms. If you start talking about dough, moolah, or cash money, all slang terms for money, you will probably be laughed at. These words have context, and it is important you understand the context before you use one. For example, if you say bucks in the UK, it doesn't really make sense, although some people who are familiar with American English might understand. The same is true with using quid in the USA. Most of these terms are also informal. However, they are incredibly useful for understanding popular culture. Movies, music, TV shows all use colloquial terms to describe money. Which words for money have you heard before? Are any that I mentioned new to you? If you have a word or idiom that I didn't mention, leave it in the blog comments. Here are today's comprehension questions. As always, the written questions and answers are available in the description of the podcast and also on our blog, thinkinginenglish.blog. What currency does Ireland use? I have no money. What idiom would describe me? I am rich. What idiom would describe me? Thank you for listening to today's episode of Thinking in English. Please share with your friends, check out our social media links in the description, and send us a message. We really appreciate all of your feedback. If you have any ideas for topics, future podcast guests, or other learning formats, please let us know. And please leave us a rating. We're now on Instagram. I'm producing daily content focusing on improving your vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation, so make sure you check out the Thinking in English page. Thinking in English Podcast on Instagram, or the link is in the description. Instagram is also probably the best way to contact me. All transcripts of the podcast are now available on the Thinking in English blog. Vocabulary lists, comprehension questions, and articles are all there for you to read, as well as some extra bonus content. The link is in the description, so please check it out. Thank you, and see you next time.